welcome back to my YouTube channel, and you are watching The Nerdy Grail. Now, one of my other passions that I very rarely seem to talk about on this channel, but I do have a massive love for it, is my love for Pokemon. As you can see back there, I've got my giant Build-A-Bear plush, which my fiance actually gave me, of Gengar, and my plush of Slowpoke. But I adore Pokemon, and I've played all the mainline Pokemon games, from the original Red, Blue and Yellow, all the way up to the current games of Scarlet and Violet, as we eagerly await the release next year of Pokémon Legends ZA and whatever other Pokemon games are in the pipeline, because we know they're cooking some new games, we really do. But I thought to myself, I've never really sat down and ranked all the mainline Pokemon games, so I thought in today's video it'd be nice to rank each of the mainline Pokemon games from Red and Blue all the way up to Scarlet and Violet. Now, as I'm ranking these, I've put them into a tier list for my own personal opinion, and that's really important. This is just my opinion. But I will also be ranking each version of the game, so I won't be collectively putting, say, Red, Blue and Yellow together, or Diamond, Pearl and Platinum together. I will be ranking them individually, so like I'll be ranking Diamond, Pearl, Platinum separately, because there are some things that do influence your decision, like you might prefer the exclusive Legendary, you might prefer the exclusive Pokemon, or in the case of, say, Diamond, Pearl and Platinum, the story slightly changes between Diamond and Pearl and Platinum, so there is differences that could influence your decision. You don't think of them as one collective whole. So that's how I'm going to be ranking these games. But let's waste no more time, jump straight in to this tier list, ranking all the mainline Pokemon games we have so far. The mainline Pokemon games from 1996/1998 to 2024. So the reason it says 1996/1998 is because the original Red, Blue and Green at the time, they came out in Japan back in 1996, and it took a couple of years before they came across the pond, and in 1998 were made available in America, and then across the pond then in the UK and Europe is when we finally got them in 1999. So there's a bit of a staggered gap, so that's just why it's like that. But this is the tier list, so we've got S, A, B, C, D, E and F, and we've got all the mainline Pokemon games from Red, Blue and Yellow all the way to Scarlet and Violet. Every single version of these games as well will be talked about in brief detail. So, I mean, let's start with the games that kicked it off, because I think I'm going to go in chronological order. With the original Red, Blue and Yellow. So obviously a lot has changed since these games have come out. A lot of new mechanics have been added in. We had the physical special split. Obviously the graphics have vastly changed and improved over time. We've had obviously a lot of new Pokemon. We've had evolutions to old Pokemon. Some types that were super effective and all have changed. So these games are extremely outdated. So apart from nostalgia, a lot of people wouldn't really go back to these. They are okay Pokemon games still to this day, but considering how far we've come, they are going to be a lot lower on the list than before. And personally for me, I know this is going to sound harsh, but for me, I'm going to put them in D tier because of how much has changed over time with them now. Whereas Yellow, I think I'm going to put just above into C tier. Because Yellow, I feel, has that sort of third game advance of it allows you to gain new Pokemon, like you can have the free starter Pokemon, and it's just a little bit more interesting. Also, having your starter as Pikachu compared to Bulbasaur, Squirtle and Charmander is interesting. But again, the game mechanics of these original games is quite outdated now, some of them, and obviously graphically doesn't hold up. So apart from nostalgia, these are the games I probably revisit the least of all the Pokemon games, unfortunately. But that's not to say that they're terrible games. It's just we've had obviously a lot, of improvement since. And that happens with every franchise, and every game franchise as well. Then we've got the Gen 2 games of Gold, Silver and Crystal, and they sort of fall into the same category, in my personal opinion, as Red, Blue and Yellow. In that, for me, I'm probably going to say they are probably about the same, if I'm honest. Whereas, like D tier, they're not perfect games anymore. Johto as a region is okay, but I feel like, like the levels are really low. The variety of Pokemon you get isn't great because a lot of the Johto decks was filled with like baby Pokemon, like Magby and Elekid and Smoochum and ones like that. So there's a couple of really good Pokemon from Johto. Like Heracross is cool. I do like Tyranitar. And the starters of Totodile, Chikorita, and Cyndaquil are interesting. My favourite being between Cyndaquil and Totodile. I'm sorry, Chikorita lovers. But Crystal does improve again upon Gold and Silver. And that tends to be the case for the third versions as well, as you will find. They are just better overall. That's kind of why they're lower on the list, if I'm honest. Then we've got Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. For me, Ruby and Sapphire, I love Gen 3. I think Gen 3 is brilliant. I love all the starters. I love Team Aqua and I love Team Magma. I think they are great games. I'd say in terms of versions exclusives, I probably do slightly prefer Sapphire to Ruby, but I do prefer Groudon to Kyogre. So I think overall, I'm going to say, for me, in my opinion, they are better than the other games, but they're probably about equal because of the version exclusives. And I do prefer Team Magma to Team Aqua, though. I just do. Like Camerupt versus Sharpedo, I am more of a Camerupt lover. Whereas Emerald, though, you get the Battle Frontier. And the Battle Frontier is amazing. Some really good post-game content there. The mix of Team Aqua and Magma in this, so the slight change in story and the inclusion of Rayquaza, which Rayquaza is amazing, probably my favourite Gen 3 Legendary. Emerald is just a superior version, and so for me, that's going to be the first game that's going to go into A tier. In my personal opinion, Emerald is fantastic and definitely better than Ruby and Sapphire, and I think a lot of people would agree with that as well. Because just Ruby and Sapphire lack that post-game content. So that's kind of why it's the way it is. Fire Red and Leaf Green. Now, surprisingly, these were actually the first versions of Kanto that I ever played. I didn't play Red, Blue, or Yellow first. I played Fire Red and Leaf Green first. So it was a bit of a shock to the system going back to the originals after playing these, because these used the Gen 3 mechanics. And Fire Red and Leaf Green are thoroughly fun games. Both of them. It's hard for me to choose, really, which one. Graphically, they're great. Just getting to experience Kanto in those updated graphics, which we've had numerous versions of that since, is just brilliant. So it's really difficult for me. But so I think personally, in my opinion, Fire Red and Leaf Green are about equal in my personal opinion. I love them both equally. They're both fantastic games, and definitely better than the originals. I'm really sorry to anyone who does love the original Red, Blue, and Yellow. I'm not saying they're terrible games. I just, like I said, we've had a lot of games since, which have improved upon some of the things that made Red, Blue, and Yellow really challenging to play, but in an unfair way. Now, moving on to Gen 4 with Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. Funnily enough, Pearl was my very first Pokemon game. So nostalgia does hit me quite hard for the Gen 4 games. Yeah, I remember getting my copy of Pearl, and I chose Empoleon as my starter, so Piplup. Because me and my two other friends, I was the only one in our trio who got Pearl, the other two got Diamond, and we each chose a different starter. So one of my friends had Turtwig, the other had Chimchar, and so I was left with Piplup, but I really loved that game. I remember my first team was Empoleon, Roserade, Staraptor, Luxray, Garchomp, and I think I had Lucario. I'm not too sure about the last one, but I know I had the other 5. So I really enjoyed Pokemon Diamond and Pearl. But obviously a year later we did get the release of Platinum, and let's be real, with Diamond and Pearl, their Pokedexes are pretty poor. So this is going to come as a shock that even though they are my original games, Diamond and Pearl are quite difficult to replay because the fact that Platinum exists and Platinum is instantly going into the A. No, Platinum for me is S tier. It's the first S tier game. I've played Platinum so many times. The much better Pokedex, because in the original Diamond and Pearl, if you wanted a fire type, if you didn't choose Chimchar, you were stuck with Ponyta. And that is not very good. To the fact that the fire type Elite Four member Flint has to use non-fire type Pokemon because there's not enough fire types. Come on, Game Freak, what are you doing? I mean, Cynthia, though, is the best champion, hands down, and one of the most difficult champions, no matter whether you're playing Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum. But still, come on. I do like the Giratina plotline that they implemented in Platinum. Getting to travel to that different dimension is really, really cool. So yeah, and obviously the better and improved Pokédex, getting to use more Pokemon from the past, like you use Eevees and Houndooms and stuff like that. You know, it improves upon Diamond and Pearl in every way, shape, or form. Fantina becomes the third gym leader again rather than the fifth, so when you get to Hearthome, you can fight her straight away, because I always thought that was a bit strange. But yeah, Platinum is just fantastic and is definitely the first S tier on this list. Then we've got Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the remakes that came out in 2010 of Gold, Silver, and Crystal. These games are just absolutely fantastic. They improve on Gold, Silver, and Crystal in every way, shape, or form. And they even improve on the Gen 4 mechanics in every way, shape, or form. These are the first proper Pokemon games in the mainline where your Pokemon follow you. So the first Pokemon in your party will follow you. And I think that is a fantastic idea and is really, really good. And using the Gen 4 graphics to bring Johto to life is brilliant. And you get to use the evolutions that were introduced in Gen 4 for some past Pokemon. You know, like you can use Honchkrow instead of just using Murkrow. You can use Weavile instead of just using Sneasel. It's a lot better. I love Heart Gold and Soul Silver. I've played these games to death. I used to own Heart Gold, but I don't anymore. I've only still got Soul Silver. I do slightly prefer Soul Silver because I am a Lugia fan more than a Ho-Oh fan. But both games are fantastic. However, I'm going to put Heart Gold in A just because that's the one I don't own anymore. And I'm going to put Soul Silver in S tier just because I am more of a Lugia supporter than Ho-Oh. But just keep in mind, Heart Gold is practically an S tier. But for me, Soul Silver just about wins. I love Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Then we've got Gen 5, a really interesting generation of games. The only games at the moment to properly get a sequel, because we got White and Black, and then we got White 2 and Black 2, and they are all fantastic games. The Dark story is great. N, Getsis, Team Plasma, you know, it is brilliant. Even though their whole idea is they want to free Pokemon from their Pokeballs, they don't think they should be slaves anymore. Even though, as you play through the game, you obviously battle them using them in Pokeballs. It's kind of like being a bit of hypocrites here. But I love the challenge that you get in this game. It's not an easy game, both versions. And again, Black and White has that thing of the sequels improve upon it in every way, shape, or form, improving the story, furthering it more, giving you a wider Pokédex, because in Black and White you can only use the new Unovan Pokemon, which is not a bad thing. But it is nice to be able to use some previous generation Pokemon in the sequels. So for me, Black and White, I would say they are about B tier, because they are really good. And then Black 2 and White 2 are about equal for me, because I'm not too fussed on the exclusives, but they are solid games, and I really, really do like Black 2 and White 2. I don't know if you've noticed a pattern so far in my tier list. I seem to prefer either the third versions or sequels more than the originals. And yeah, that just tends to be the case for the most part. It's very rare that the originals seem to be better because time has passed and they've been able to learn from the mistakes of the original. That's just how it works. X and Y. Oh, the most incomplete games, I think, of the whole franchise. Gen 6 had so much promise. I love the concept of Mega Evolution. The jump to the 3DS with the 3D graphics was good and bad because the colours of some of the Pokemon, the sprites and stuff, they feel a bit washed out, don't feel as detailed, which luckily Scarlet and Violet and Legends Arceus did rectify that. But yeah, some concepts were great. Like I said, Mega Evolution is fantastic. However, Team Flare, a very predictable evil team. The lack of real post-game content does drag this game down a lot. There's not a lot of replayability in X and Y, which is unfortunate. So for me, they're going to be low on the list, and they are going to be separated because I do prefer certain Pokemon over the others. I am more of a Pokemon X fan, so for me, X is going to be B tier, and Y is going to be C tier. Well, actually, no. At the moment, no. I'm going to do that. C tier for X, D tier for Y. I just feel like because they're incomplete, it really hurts these games. I mean, obviously, we've got Legends ZA next year, so hopefully that will then add to these games. Whether it's in the past or future, it doesn't matter. So hopefully then that'll help boost X and Y a little bit. But for now, that's how it stands, I think, personally. Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the remakes of Sapphire and Ruby. And for they're good games, but I do actually replay them very little, which is such a shame. I do like Primal Kyogre and Primal Groudon, and I love the one thing I do love about the games, apart from obviously the fact they use the Gen 6 mechanics, is so you get new Mega Evolutions of all three Hoenn starters, which is brilliant. I do like that you can fly across the map on Latios or Latias. I think that is a really neat idea. But because they stick to being remakes of Sapphire and Ruby, it means that they're, apart from collecting all the legendaries, which is nice, there's a large lack in post-game content. Yes, you do have the Delta episode, which is a good addition to the story, making them, you know, at least a little bit better than the originals. There's still not an awful lot to do then after that. And the Delta episode's not really very long either. So yeah, it's hit or miss for me. I do think Omega Ruby is A tier for me because I love Primal Groudon. Alpha Sapphire, I'm probably just going to put it in B tier. It's about the same as the original in my opinion, and like I said, I do prefer the exclusives a little bit more in Omega Ruby. And so if I'm picking which version I would like to play, I tend to pick Omega Ruby over Alpha Sapphire a lot. So that's kind of why. Okay, Sun and Moon. Oh, see, this is going to cause controversy. My opinions on the original Sun and Moon are very low. I was not a fan at all of Sun and Moon when it came out. I know. I really struggled to play them. It took me ages to beat them, not because I was struggling, but because I was bored. I was bored, and that's a problem. These were the first Pokemon games that actually made me feel a bit bored, and so I didn't want to continue. They tried to change up the formula a bit, which can be done well, as you'll see in a later game, but I don't know if they did it in the right way. They got rid of gym leaders in replacement for trials and trial captains and stuff like that, which is interesting, but in my opinion, it didn't really work too well. The story, be it was good, was very slow and drawn out. Like, it took, I think, about 45 minutes to get to the starter select screen, which if you are a shiny hunter or if you're a speedrunner, that's... yeah, it's not good. It took way too long. They sort of went, you want story? Well, we're going to hammer it real hard in this game. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Sun and Moon. The legendaries of Solgaleo and Lunala are cool. Some of the new Pokemon are great. I do like Decidueye and Incineroar. Primarina's also cool. The starters are not too bad. I mean, everyone loves Rowlet, come on. But as games, I'm not a fan of Sun and Moon, so I'm going to cause some controversy here. I'm going to say, personally, I do prefer Moon, so I'm going to put it in D tier. And then Sun's going to be an E tier game. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of Sun and Moon. I am awfully sorry. Please remember, this is just my list and it's my personal opinion. But they are the games that I revisit the least. Almost less than the originals. So then Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Now, these I do slightly prefer. I actually slightly prefer Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. I like the stuff that they include. I love Necrozma. I like traveling through the Ultra wormholes to find legendaries and shinies and stuff like that. I enjoy some of the changes to the story. I enjoy the new Pokemon that was added. I enjoy the new designs for the characters. I also enjoy the Mantine surfing. I think that's a lot of fun. I have spent a long time racking up points on Mantine surfing in order to get new moves. The fact that you can use totem Pokemon is really cool. When they did bring Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon out, though, they did get rid of Mega Evolution, apart from post-game content where they brought that back. I'm not a fan of Z-moves. Z-moves are my least favourite gimmick of all the gimmicks. So I'm not. That's another reason why I don't like Sun and Moon. Z moves for me are silly, if I'm honest. Plus, if you're putting Mega Evolution in the game, just keep it in the game. Don't just lock it behind post game. But yeah, I do prefer these games, and I like them equally. So I'm gonna say for me, I'm probably gonna put them in C tier, both of them. They are average. I don't revisit them an awful lot. But they are definitely better for me than the original Sun and Moon. So I find myself revisiting these a little bit more. Then we have the Switch era of Pokemon games, starting with Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu, which are Gen 1 remakes again. But they also implement the Pokemon Go feature, which... I'm going to put my hand up now. I have actually never played Pokemon Go. I know. A Pokemon fan who's never played Pokemon Go. It just never seemed to catch on for me. So, yeah, I've never played Pokemon Go, so this is the closest I've got to playing Pokemon Go. They are pretty good in terms of graphically. They are really nice. I love that Pokemon follow you again. They are fairly simple games. They use the Pokemon Yellow mechanics of you can use all three of the Cantonian starters of Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur on your team. You can use Mega Evolution at some point in the game as well, which is great. I love Mega Evolution. So I had quite a lot of fun with these games. So I'm going to say that both of them for me are probably about equal. So I'm going to say they're B tier. They are fun games. They're still not the best Gen 1 remakes for me. Those still go to Fire Red and Leaf Green. But they are fairly solid games and good first entries into the Switch line of Pokemon games. Sword and Shield. Right. Gen 8, I love their Pokédex. It's the region based in the UK where I'm from. So I feel a bit more connected to these games. But obviously they had a lot of issues. They were ridiculed for their graphics. The infamous tree, the pixelated tree, that everyone knows about that if you're a Pokemon fan. Is infamous. It was the first Pokemon games to implement DLC, because we're in the DLC era of games now. So you had the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra DLC. 2 DLCs. Where they locked a lot of previous Pokemon behind those, more content, clothes, things like that, legendaries. Wasn't a huge fan of that at the time. I don't mind the DLCs, but they're nothing too special. Sword and Shield, yeah, they're okay, but nothing spectacular. What I did like about these games, though, is, like I said, the Pokédex. And I did like that they tried to change things up in terms of they gave you different gym leaders based on the game that you were playing. So in You had like B in Pokemon Sword, who was a fighting type gym leader. You had Alistair in Pokemon Shield, who was a ghost type. You then had a rock type gym leader in Sword, I believe, and a ice type gym leader in Shield. So they tried to mix it up a little bit. So I did like that. I do prefer the gym leaders in Sword, and I do prefer the exclusives in Sword. So for me, Sword I'm going to put in B tier, and Shield I'm going to put in C tier. Because yeah, Sword and Shield are not perfect games, but they're not as good as others. It's tough for me. But yeah, I much prefer Sword than Shield, so that's where I'm going to put them. Oh, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Wow, we have been campaigning for Sinnoh remakes since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire because we knew they were doing them in order. Fire Red and Leaf Green were the Gen 1 remakes. Heart Gold and Soul Silver were the Gen 2 remakes. Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, the Gen 3 remakes. Gen 4 remakes were next. We were waiting and waiting and waiting, and when they finally were announced, instant disappointment. They went far too faithful to the original. Far too faithful. You know, none of these previous remakes were 100% accurate to the original versions. They still implemented the new mechanics. They included some of the new Pokemon, you know? Whereas Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, for the most part, they tried to be literal remakes of the original. Even down to, you couldn't really get the Platinum Pokédex. They did have in the I was about to say the London Underground. They had the Underground still, and they locked some of the Pokemon behind there, but they didn't give you all of them. So yeah, and the Chibi style. I don't mind the Chibi style. It's not the worst thing, but considering what we had, you know, why couldn't we've had Let's Go style characters? You know, that was what we wanted. So yeah, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl for me and they were way too easy. Apart from the Elite Four, they really decided to ramp up the Elite Four. So yeah, I'm not a fan at all of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. So for me, they are actually going towards the bottom of the list. They are also going to be down the bottom. I'm going to say, for me, do I prefer Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl? I think I do prefer Brilliant Diamond a little bit more, surprisingly. But yeah, they're not very good. They're not very good remakes at all. That's just my opinion. If you enjoy these games, good on you. But for me, they're not very good. I'm not a big fan of Brilliant Diamond or Shining Pearl. I revisit them almost as little as I do the original Sun and Moon. If I'm playing Sinnoh, I play Platinum. I even play the original Diamond and Pearl more than Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. Last three games then, we got Legends Arceus and Scarlet and Violet. Legends Arceus did something completely different with the formula. You know, you go to the past, it's the Hisui region, long before Sinnoh was the Sinnoh that we know and love. You know, you get to see the creation of the Pokédex, you go on missions, some really good open world mechanics here. It's a difficult game as well. It's not the easiest Pokemon game. It really shook it up in a good way, and I really enjoyed Legends Arceus. I think it is a really fun, solid game. And I love the change up to the formula. So for me, it's S tier. I know that might shock some people, but I adore Legends Arceus. I really like Legends Arceus. I think it's a really good game. Solid game. And I love the new evolutions and new forms of Typhlosion, Decidueye, and Samurott. I think the Hisuian forms are great. And then finally, the newest games of Scarlet and Violet, which also had DLC added as well. You know, the Teal Mask DLC and the Indigo Disc. Both are really good. The open world style in Scarlet and Violet was also really, really good. The story was pretty decent. The twist that the Pokemon professors were actually not real and they were robots I thought that was an interesting twist as well. The starters were really cool. I love Fuecoco. Fuecoco is my favourite. But I do love Quaxley and Sprigatito as well. The good variety of Pokemon. The open world is brilliant. The fact that you can do the story in any order for the most part, really. They give you 3 different tasks of Titans, gym leaders, and evil teams or an evil crew that you've got to take down. So that's pretty cool. So it's good to give you a choice. And the DLCs are really good as well, and actually add to the story. So I really like that. The only thing that this game has that's flawed for me is they are the glitchiest, buggiest Pokemon games I have ever played, and that's saying something because of Sword and Shield. I've never had a Pokemon game crash on me, whereas Scarlet and Violet multiple times crashed on me where I lost data, and that was really frustrating. I've fallen through the map before. I've been soft locked multiple times. It's really, really frustrating. So that puts them just out of the S tier. However, they are really solid games. I'm going to put them in A tier because like I said, I'm currently replaying them again. I'm doing a dragon type mono run, so I am looking forward to playing these again. I like Scarlet and Violet. Despite their glitches, they are fine. But yes, that is it. That is my ranking of the mainline Pokemon games. Remember, this is just my list and my opinion. If you disagree, that is fine. I'd be happy to hear your list as well, and you can leave those in the comments below, but keep them nice and polite. But that's going to be the Nerdy Grail signing off. If you enjoyed this video, please like it by giving it a thumbs up, and subscribe if you are new. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.